Welcome to the Ask for Football Army Football Show. The Army Football Show is an insider's guide for cadets, old grads, and college football fans to follow the Army team throughout their season as they seek to beat Navy and claim the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. Ask for Football is brought to you by our sponsor, Jocelyn Bradley Real Estate. Whether you're buying, selling, or just exploring your options, Jocelyn Bradley is the expert you can trust to navigate the real estate market with ease. Visit jocelynbradley.com to learn more. And let's get started at the Ask for Football Army Football Show.
All right, it's take two, but here we are. You want to host this thing, or do I want to host this thing?
Oh, I mean, we're going to be going back and forth on sports, so not a big deal either way. But welcome to the first off-season Army football show. We're going to cover some, athletic department news, spring sports, winter sports, kind of put a bow on things and get ready for another year of nationally ranked Army men's lax. So I'm excited.
And women's lax is now ranked as well.
I didn't see that. Gotcha.
Yes, they are now number 23 after starting unranked. So as I wrote here, it's a pretty good time to be an Army sports fan unless you like men's basketball, in which case.
Yeah, well, you know what? We'll get into some men's basketball later. Tough loss today, but, not all is lost on the season for Army men's basketball. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, spring sports, full swing. We talked about Army women's basketball beats Navy today. They complete the season sweep. Men's basketball not so lucky. They get swept on the season. Army men's lax had a noon kickoff and beat Rutgers pretty handily. It was a low-scoring affair, which is we'll talk more about that later, but just what Army likes. Army women's lacrosse beat Rutgers last Saturday on an insane last-second goal from, I'm forgetting her name.
I have it down here somewhere.
Ryan Romali, I think.
Yeah.
Ryan Romali with the heartbreaker against Rutgers. And then they had this weekend off. They'll play a game Wednesday as well as the men, which we'll get into.
Just in time for a major nor'easter.
Right. Although the latest model I saw said it was shifting south, so let's stay hopeful.
I could use a little more snow in Vermont, but all right, fair enough. All right, I'll do this commercial here.
Yeah,
friends, Ask for Football is brought to you by. Wow, we're like fully in off-season mode here. Can't even do the reads. Okay, so friends. Ask for Football is brought to you by Jocelyn Bradley Realtor. If you are PCSing into what was formerly Fort Bragg, then Fort Liberty, and is once again Fort Bragg, but a different Bragg now, we have the Realtor for you, no matter which damn post you're going to. Jocelyn is a veteran who spent her career in Army logistics. There, she discovered a passion for making a difference in people's lives. She's committed to helping clients find their dream homes in her market or, providing exceptional service if you're trying to sell your house. She has decided to support Ask for Football this season. And in fact, Rob told me already that she's looking to be with us next season as well, which is freaking awesome. And she's the right person to get you into your home of your dreams. And as we talk about all the time, like this real estate thing is confusing and you want somebody who is going to work for your best benefit and not for their personal best benefit. You want to go with somebody that you can trust, right? And Jocelyn is a person that you can trust. She's also part of an extended network of experienced realtors who can support you if you're making a move somewhere else in the country. So even if you're not moving to Fort Bragg, Liberty Bragg, you should still reach out to Jocelyn and ask, hey, set me up with somebody in my area who can show me around. Because like I said, you want to see houses that you want to see. You don't want to see the houses that somebody just wants to show you because, this is my price range. Let me try to upsell you 15% because that's how I make my money. That's not what she's doing, right? She's going to put you into a house that you want. And so, like I said, she's supporting us here at Ask for Football, and we are trying to help you get into that house that you need to get into. So, yeah, man, let's talk spring sports.
Well, real quick, keeping it non-political, I'm sort of happy that we get the moniker Bragg back because I get, look, we don't want to honor the Confederate general, but for decades, how many Army soldiers deployed around the world from Fort Bragg, and that means something to a lot of people.
It
And
is certainly less confusing.
yes, and I'm just glad that we sort of have a happy medium now where we get the name back without the strings attached to it, so that the 70 years of Army history where people are deploying from Fort Bragg, they get to keep that.
Fort Liberty was always the worst name possible.
Oh yeah,
it's not even a person. It's
right.
just
they ran out of people, I guess. But yeah. One more thing before we get into sports, I'm sure that listeners know, but Tom Theodorakis, new athletic director at Army, replacing Mike Buddy, who took this same position at Texas Christian. Tom had been in charge of external funds or something like that. He was the money guy, the external money guy. So he had been raising money for the Mikey Stands or the Mikey Preservation Project, things like that. A little bit less focused prior to this on the internal ticket sales, things like that. But he was the external funds guy. You're seeing this happen at a lot of athletic departments where they bring in the money generators as the AD, and then they have that person curate towards sports as a secondary thing. So luckily, right, Army's in a place where they don't need somebody who's curated towards the sports. Number one, they bring in people to do all their hiring for them. They bring in the hiring firms, right? And they're not really at a point where they have to make any big hires. They have the football coach of their dreams. They just hired the basketball coach of their dreams. They have a women's basketball coach. They have the baseball coach of their dreams right now that was just hired a couple of years ago. So really no big hires to be made. So I think a good fit for Army. I have talked to the Sid, and we will get him on the podcast at some point. So send questions.
As long as we're talking about this, let's just acknowledge that Joe Alberici today is in his 20th year with the Army men's lacrosse program, which is freaking unbelievable. And to be in your 20th year and look to have maybe the best program you've ever had, I think is unbelievable too.
Yeah,
you're talking about
lacrosse is one of those sports where the coaches don't move around nearly as much.
Okay, but still, you would think at some point, it's hard to keep the message fresh after 20 years.
Oh yeah, from a performance standpoint, for sure, it's extremely impressive. It's I guess not as impressive that he hasn't moved on to Maryland or something like that, because lacrosse tends to be a little immune to that. But no, I agree.
Let's wait until the SEC starts to play lacrosse, or if Michigan gets more serious. I mean, the Big Ten is pushing into lacrosse, and at some point, they're gonna come with the funds that they come with. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Michigan and Ohio State, that's a thing. It will be a thing sooner or later. Let me put it to you that way.
The one protection I think that the lacrosse has is they're not as NIL. Not as NIL happy. Some of these kids don't have to worry about, whether or not I'm making 40 grand playing lacrosse this year. So I'd rather play for a storied program than play for, you'll still see kids always coming from Hofstra to the Ivies or Hofstra to an ACC school. Sure. But I think it's a space that service academies can be a little bit more competitive in. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm excited. We'll wrap up, women's basketball real quick. They're 18-5 overall now, 10-3 in the Patriot League. They're in second place behind Lehigh. They're a game and a half out. Two in the win column. Excuse me, one in the win column and two in the loss column. Looking good going to the league tournament. I think their magic number is 5 with 5 games to go. With the team trailing with 6 games to go in order to get a first round bye, get one of those top 4 seeds, first round bye, and host a first round game. So that's where they are. On the men's side. They just lost, as we talked about, to Navy at a 7-minute scoring drought. They're a very hot and cold team, but they're a very high-powered offense this year, the top-scoring offense in the Patriot League. Unfortunately, today they let Navy dictate the pace. They going into today were the second-ranked team in the conference as well. They still should be. Even with today's results, I believe they have a magic number of 3 with 5 games to go.
It's aggravating. Let me just jump in. It's aggravating, and I am not some huge men's basketball fan. I probably watch more women's basketball than men's basketball, but that giant Navy center that they have, Army doesn't seem to have an answer for that one individual.
And again, I think it was a little bit more of a pace thing today. Like if you get him tired, if you can get him tired when your offense is pushing the ball quickly, then maybe he isn't as effective. But they kind of the final score, neither team hit 60, I don't think, unless maybe they hit him with free throws at the end of the game or something. But it was a very low-scoring affair, which is not what Army's used to. If they want to win that game, they have to get the pace up. They have to push it up and down the floor. Get number Kehoe, number 99. Yeah, they got to get their big tired and to the point where he's missing those inside shots. So we'll see. I think they're a good matchup for most of the league, but they are. I'll say for men's basketball, man, all is forgiven if they win the Patriot League tournament. So
that's the truth.
It really doesn't matter.
It's still probably the best basketball team that we've seen in 20 years.
I will say, well, it's hard to say. So Kevin Kuick, number one, if he has one more win, he will have tied the best record in conference play that Army has ever had.
That's nuts.
If he has two more wins in conference play, he will, in his second year, have the second best, or excuse me, in his second year, have the best conference winning percentage ever in Army history. Now, they were independent for a long time, sure, but that's still saying something. So that's really important, getting a high seed in the tournament, getting some home games in the tournament. Army does much better at home than they do on the road, so that's really important. And he's really turning things around. And remember, this is only his second year, and he only has one recruiting class. It's just the true freshmen who didn't go to MAPS that are his recruiting class. They make up for like 5% of the total minutes of the game. So he is doing this with a squad that he didn't recruit, with having lost some guys to the transfer portal when he showed up. So this is year two. Kevin Kuick is doing really well. And as we said, all is forgiven if they can, pull off a Patriot League tournament win here. That'd be freaking awesome. Get us off the list. So.
That would be amazing. I don't know if I'm ready to bet on that one, but that would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Sweet. Hockey beat Air Force last night. Or when are they playing today? Has that game started?
I don't know what time that is. Hold on. You talk and I'll look it up.
Yeah, so Army hockey has sort of had a hot and cold season. They didn't have a single win out of conference this year, with the exception of the exhibition game against RMC, but of actual games of record. They did not have a single win out of conference. Started their conference play. It seemed like it was kind of be a bummer year for Coach Brian Riley's final year on the job. The final year, I think it's something like 75 seasons, or I'll have to look it up, but of the Riley family coaching Army hockey, and it looked like it was going to kind of be a bummer. Now they're something like 13-5-1 in conference. I think they're 4th or 5th in conference play. Really looking good. They swept Air Force at home earlier in the year. They won the first game last night, and then they'll play tonight 7 p.m. On Altitude TV, which most Army fans won't get, or Flow Hockey if you want to pay a ridiculous subscription.
We got a handful of guys in the Firsty Club that don't miss a game. I got to say that the Army hockey, that's not a huge community, but it's
a tight one.
Yeah, it is one of the most fanatical communities within like the greater West Point community. So yeah,
it's I feel like baseball is a very similar community in that aspect. But so hockey, actually could get themselves into a top 4 seed as long as you're top 5. You get a bye in the tournament in the Atlantic Hockey America Conference. So they should get top 5, get a bye, and then hopefully host a first round game. If they can get number 4, a first round series if they can get number 4. Army baseball played yesterday a doubleheader. They went 1-1 down in Madison, Alabama. They're playing at the Rocket City Trash Pandas AA minor league team in the Southern League, a league foe of the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, who I did some announcing for when I was stationed down there. They're a fun time. Nice, my second year in a row where Army's playing some, early season games against a team in a minor league ballpark. So it's a cool thing for the players, I think. And I believe a few of Army players are from the area, so it's a nice little homecoming for them.
Yeah.
They play today as well. Forgive me, I don't know the time of that.
It's a 3-game set against North Alabama, and I don't think that one's going to be on TV, but I could be wrong.
No, it was originally going to be on the Trash Pandas YouTube, but I believe now it's on Flow Sports as well, so you need a subscription. But the third game is today. I don't know what time. Then they go at Air Force for a 3-game set on February 28th. It's the first time in something like 20 years, and I can look back on my Twitter, that they're playing at Air Force. So hopefully that means some return games next year. That'd be super cool. Usually they'll play Air Force as part of a round robin in a tournament down south or something like that, or in a 3-game. I think last year or a couple years ago they played in a 3-game set in a minor league ballpark or something like that. So cool to see those games make their way to the academies. It's going to be cold, obviously, right? And the return series will be cold next year, which is why they do what they do down south. But we will see. Patriot League play starts March 7th. In the Patriot League, all these early season games basically don't count because you're never gonna get an at-large bid as a Patriot League team. Unfortunately, your RPI is never going to be strong enough. So these are warm-up games. They're to get you ready for the Patriot League, and this will be gunning for number 7 in a row if they can pull off a Patriot League championship again this year and make it to the NCAA tournament.
That is amazing. I'll finish out. Army softball currently 5-5. They played a 5-game set out in California to start the season, which is good work if you can get it. Now they're in the midst of the Columbus Classic, which, as you said, is also down south. And like you said, nothing really matters until March 22nd when they have Patriot League play at Lehigh. And finally, Army football season ticket renewals have come out. So we were skiing, of course, Thursday and Friday when I guess it was Friday morning, riding up the lifts, and I get a phone call in my ear. And I, of course, answered it because I didn't have my phone. I had just had to pick it up. And it was the Army sports department asked me if I was planning to renew. Of course, being on the lift, I didn't whip my credit card out, but they are ready for my money at my leisure. So there are 5 home games this year, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I could not tell you all of them.
Tarleton State, Tulsa, UAB, Temple, and one more. I'm trying to remember.
Tarleton State and 5 and Tulane. No, we're at Tulane.
No,
5 American teams.
Somehow we escaped. Oh, Charlotte is the other home game. Somehow we escaped playing Memphis 2 years in a row, which is a strange one, but it makes for another competitive schedule this year.
Yeah. So I have not seen any announcements about spring football. Terry told me that the team is doing mat drills and
the schedule got pushed yesterday. The spring game is.
Oh, when is it?
Let me pull it up while you keep talking.
I will. So yeah, the football team is doing mat drills, and no word on if specific people that we know have barfed yet, but we will assume that they have because that's how they roll. And in the past, the spring game has been the day before Army-Navy Lacrosse, but that is down in Annapolis this year. So I'm not totally sure, but I would guess, if I had to guess, that it would be the 11th or maybe the 18th. And James is frantically Googling away. If you were in the Firsty Club and you have questions, now is the time to fire your questions at us. Or if you're just a subscriber on X. All right. So Craig Oxane is the vice president, he is now the area sales manager and mortgage broker at the Money Store. Craig is a member of the West Point class of 1994, licensed to lend in all 50 states. Friends, Craig is one of the most successful VA lenders in the country. He's going to offer you super competitive rates, give you the best deal that he possibly can. And this is important because, as we know, that the mortgage process and just the home buying process generally is super confusing. Interest rates are moving all over the place. You've got very unsettled markets right now. It's just not the time to try to deal with somebody who's trying to make a buck off you. It might not be a bad time to buy a house, but it's definitely not the time to deal with somebody who's just trying to jack you up, right? You want to deal with somebody who actually cares, who's a person that you can talk to, who you can call on the phone, not some call center, not some random big box bank or mindless website. And as we have said a million times, this is how the West Point Network functions. Craig is helping us stay in business here at As for Football, and we're trying to introduce you to the guy who can give you the best deal on a mortgage that we possibly can. We're like a one-stop shop for your realtor needs, for your real estate buying and selling needs. And as we've said, Craig does not charge lending fees for veterans. That's a huge savings, like $1,300. Get that money. Save yourself $1,300. So Craig Oxane, area sales manager at the Money Store. Check him out. Links on our website. All those links are on our website. Just go to asforfootball.com. You got the little business cards there. Click on them. You can find our sponsors. And if you're trying to buy or sell a house, like, we have got you covered. James.
April 11th.
April 11th. See, I was right. Didn't even need to look that up.
All right, let's get into lacrosse. Let's start by saying, our new athletic director is a former Syracuse lacrosse player.
I did not know that. Interesting.
It's been something like 20 years since Syracuse has been gutsy enough to come play Army on the banks of the Hudson. They keep losing up in Syracuse. So
I was going to say they are steady losing in the Dome. Why do they want to come to Mikey Stadium?
But as we've learned, Army Lacrosse alumni are doing their reunion this year up at Army while Army plays UNC. So it is possible for an Atlantic Coast Conference team to play a road game at Army. In case the Orange were wondering. You wanna start us off on the review?
Yeah. Men's lacrosse came into the season ranked 12th, which was like nerve-wracking because if you remember last season, 2 years ago, we didn't know anything about the team. It was like, we legitimately on As for Football, we were like, we don't know how good these guys are going to be. This might be a rebuilding year. And the team adopted the motto, keep the change, and proceeded to run through everyone like the Death Star and make it all the way to the quarterfinals of the NC2A tournament. And last year, we were all fired up. We said, hey, this team is rad, and they're going to go all the way to the championship. And it isn't that they had a bad season, but they lost to Boston University twice, which is not the way that you get into the tournament. And they didn't. And I don't want to say it's a disappointing season when I think they went 13-3 and were at one point ranked number 1 in the nation, but they certainly didn't live up to expectations. So this year, the team has adopted the motto, rent is due, meaning that they know they know what they have, right? And they come into the season ranked 12th, and we weren't totally sure what this was going to look like. But then in the first game of the season, they just spanked UMass 16-9. And then today, they beat Rutgers this afternoon. Pretty close contest. 9-3. I mean, they kicked the crap out of Rutgers. Rutgers scored 1 goal in the first half. They were lucky to get it. The only reason they scored in the second half, I think, is because Army started rotating in quite a few subs. I mean, the game was 9-3, but it really wasn't that close. Army beat their ass. This Army defense is as good as any Army defense I've ever seen, which is pretty freaking good. Offense is getting lots of new production all the way around. Got a bunch of good-looking plebes, which is definitely not the kind of thing that you can count on. But, man, plebe attack, Braden Fountain had 4 goals today. This kid Fountain has played 2 collegiate games in his entire life, and he has a hat trick in both of them. That is nuts. Goalie Sean Byrne had 10 saves today. He was like a brick wall. I'm telling you. The men face number 9 Yale on Wednesday afternoon starting at 1 p.m. That's a big game, but unfortunately it's going to be a little less big than we might have hoped because Yale got beat by Villanova today. So,
today is a chaos day in men's lacrosse, and I'm glad Army did not participate. Let's go through some of these results just because a lot of them are pertinent to Army. Real quick before we get there, Brian Fontaine, is it
Fountain?
Fountain.
Well, that's what they said on the broadcast today.
Yeah, they also called Army West Point Military Academy, so I'm not sure how much I trust that announcer.
He works for West Point.
He's new. I don't know who he is because he's not the guy who normally called the home lacrosse games last year.
Oh, all right. Maybe I'm confused. I thought I recognized
their normal guys are at basketball today. So
okay.
So I'm not sure. But he was originally a Navy commit. So that's
talking about Fountain.
Yeah.
Dude, he is legit. I mean, as a plebe.
Yeah. We'll get into a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about how Army is playing this year. But today, Richmond beats number 7 Virginia on Virginia's home field. let's see. Duke barely escapes a scare at home against St. Joseph. They were losing late. They ended up winning by 2 goals. 15 Georgetown beats 13 Penn.
Okay.
Johns Hopkins barely escapes a game at Loyola. They were losing until late.
I don't know if that's a surprise. Loyola's not bad this year.
I mean, Johns Hopkins was number 4 and Loyola was unranked. But
Okay.
But Loyola, I believe, is now 0-3 with like 3 really good losses.
Okay.
As you said, Villanova beat Yale. We had a similar situation before we played Rutgers. Rutgers was ranked, and then Rutgers lost to Stony Brook. They got, which is like ridiculous.
That's a terrible loss.
Right. Now, Villanova beating Yale. Villanova is not, has been in and out of the rankings over the last few years, so that's not as bad. And this is Yale's first game of the year. So hopefully it's not just Yale knocking off Rust. It means that Army's actually going to beat Yale, but we'll see. Princeton beats Penn State in overtime. And right now, Denver is struggling with Utah, who's unranked. Maryland is beating Syracuse by 3 goals in the fourth quarter. Syracuse is number 2, Maryland's number 6. So those all sort of have some of those will directly affect Army's rankings this week, but a lot of those will just sort of affect the picture around Army. Let's talk a little bit about the way that Army's playing this year, because it's very different. Last year was sort of the epitome of how Army played, what Army had been trying to do over the last 10 years, and they did it really well, which is we're going to take as much time as we can per possession.
Yeah.
Find an opportunity or two to score, but largely we're going to rely on what usually for Army is either an All-American or future All-American defenseman, really good defensive midfielders.
Yep.
And then
which they have this year. They do have that this year.
They do have that this year, right? I'm not saying that they don't. And then over the last few years, they've comboed that with a really good Fogo and a really good goalie. And then they just take a long time. They take as much possession as they can to give their defense as much rest as they can. And then they keep the score low and they win the game that way. But what happened last year was that they were sort of doing that. And then they got a couple of attacks that were attackmen that were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And then they had some, so especially some young offensive midfielders over the last couple of years, some short stick midfielders that could really snipe it in ways that you hadn't seen previously for Army. So they didn't necessarily change their scheme, but they were able to utilize those a little bit. Now, this year, we'll see what's up. I mean, not a great day for Will Coletti at the faceoff X.
No.
I don't know if they just had his number. Rutgers had his number, or what's going on. But Foga, Coletti, a second-team All-American to start the year, having a bad day today. But provided that gets fixed, which there's no reason to think it won't, Army doesn't wait to shoot. If they have an open shot, they're taking it. And if they don't have an open shot, they're actively working to find the open shot. And if that happens 15 seconds into a possession, they're not afraid to do it in a way that wasn't true in previous years. So part of that worries you, right? Because you don't know how good your defense is going to be when they're playing an extra 6-7 minutes a game if you're not prolonging those offensive possessions. But they're also scoring on them, right? Like they have the offensive skill to be able to do that a lot. And as long as you have a face-off guy who can make it take it enough of the time, then it shouldn't matter too much. Now, the problem is if you get a bad matchup with your Fogo, and now all of a sudden, instead of your defense being on the field for 25 to 30 minutes, they're on the field for 35 minutes, playing active defense. They're going to be a lot more tired, and you can't rely on them the same way. So we'll see how that goes, but it's a marked change in how they've approached these first 2 games.
So here's what I thought to say. I didn't see the first game. We were skiing. It's ski season. Y'all are just going to have to live with that. But I mean, I do ski a lot. Today they played pretty fast early. They got up 2-0. I don't know if it was fully unsettled or if they were just just kind of rolling in there. But I would definitely have said Rutgers had the possession advantage through the first, I don't know, 3/4 of the first quarter, and maybe halfway into the first quarter, up 2-0, they made what looked like a considered decision to slow it down a little bit. And I thought Rutgers defense played really, really well. Their offense leaves something to be desired, but their defense I thought played pretty well. And that goalie looked good today too. So
yeah, Byrne looked good. I mean, he had a goal.
Oh no, I meant Rutgers goalie looked good.
Oh,
too.
Gotcha. Yeah. Rutgers, it seems to be a good defensive team this year. I think they just don't really have an offense, which is how you lose to Stony Brook. But here's the problem. It's almost directly comparable to a triple option offense when you start going blow for blow in the first quarter, and all of a sudden it's 14-14 in the early second, and you haven't really possessed the ball, right? Your defense is more tired than it should be, and you're getting yourself into a shootout, which isn't your advantage. Today, it worked out just fine, and then they were able to slip back into this time of possession game like you said.
We definitely saw them make that switch, and I thought they had more success when they did.
The problem is going to come if they're playing Yale on Wednesday, and I'm making this up. I know nothing about Yale's offense.
I can tell you a little about it, but okay.
Yeah. But the problem is or UNC later in the season or some talented team, right? And they're playing a game, and instead of being up 2-0 in the late first period, in the late first quarter, they don't get those couple of goals to go unsettled or quickly, and they've eaten up a bunch of possessions without using the clock. And we're in the late first quarter now. The defense has been on the field for 8 minutes. The offense has been on the field for 3 minutes, and the other team got a goal or two to go. And now you're down, and your defense has not been given the advantage it usually gets. So what do you do in that situation? So that's sort of what against most teams this should work. What happens in those situations where you end up down early?
So let's talk about what happened to Yale today. The reason we decided to do this show today was because we wanted to talk about this Rutgers game, which frankly I think both of us thought was going to be much closer than it was, and then talk about this Yale game on Wednesday because this is pretty high leverage portion of the season as far as non-conference schedule goes. But Villanova outshot Yale 46-39 and 24-21 in terms of shots on goal. It's not an overwhelming shots on goal differential. They forced 21. Nova forced 21 turnovers against Yale. Yale only forced 15. And, by way of comparison, Army today forced 20 Rutgers turnovers, which it felt like Rutgers turned the ball over with reckless abandon versus 16 of their own. But the reason that I think Yale lost is they failed on 18 of 21 clears. And I mention that because today Army failed on several clears as well when Rutgers started playing 10-man ride, although we also saw the goalie.
Yale failed on how many clears?
8 of 21.
Oh, 8 of 21. Gotcha.
Yeah. So they succeeded on about 2/3 of their clears, but they failed on enough clears that in an otherwise close game, they lost. So, I mean, if you lose turnovers by 6 and you fail 8 clears, all of a sudden, you're behind the 8 ball.
Standard clear percentage is what, high 80s?
I don't know. Was Army at 80% today? I think Army's probably
about no. I'm saying a normal, like an average clear percentage.
Ryan McDonald, I know you are watching this and you know more about lacrosse than either of us. If you know what the average clear percentage is, we would love that in the comments right now. I don't know. We will stipulate that it's around 70%, 70 to 80% with absolutely no knowledge on it. Anyway, that forced them to lose. So Yale has 3 guys on the Tewaaraton watch list. Leo Johnson, who is an attack. Chris Lyons, also an attack, and Brad Sharp, who is a midfielder. Johnson had 2 goals and 2 assists. Lyons had 1 goal. Sharp had 1 goal. These guys also have 10 guys on the all New England preseason team. 85%, Ryan says, is usually what you're looking for. So I don't know if Army hit that today. I'm not totally sure how many clears that they failed, but they were struggling a little late with that 10-man ride, and maybe that was just because they had some subs in late. But anyway, Yale definitely did not hit anywhere near 85% today, and as we said, they lost. So you want to talk about women's lacrosse for a minute?
Yeah, so they are 1-0 on the year with just one with just one game. I might be lost.
No, I got it.
Yeah.
So they beat Rutgers 10-9, as you said, last minute goal from Ryan Ramali. I hope I said that right. And they're now ranked 23rd in the country, which I'm not totally sure we thought was going to happen because they've pretty much just got Duffy and Riley as like name stars at this point. So they sort of need to build more. They need to get more scoring than just Duffy and Riley, because when it gets into crunch time, this team, they're obviously trying to get the ball to their best players like you do, but every team in America knows that. So for the women, notwithstanding that they don't have any defenders on the All Patriot League team preseason or whatever, their defense has been pretty good, but their offense, they've been looking for like that next stick, and we'll see if that turns out to be Ramali. Anyway, they face Siena this Saturday at 1 p.m. Next Saturday at 1 p.m. Which is a long layoff between games, and they face Marist on Wednesday. They win both those games, but then they travel out to number 21 Colorado at Boulder on Friday, February 28th. So I guess we'll get a sense, assuming that the women can, sort of hold serve and do what we expect them to do. We'll get a sense of what they really can do on the national stage when they travel to Boulder in 2 weeks.
I'm excited. I mean, this is a head coach that is extremely well known in the women's lacrosse community, and these sorts of games where I think they played at a California school and hosted a California school last year, and you get these big games against Colorado. I mean, that's happening because everyone wants to come and play Army, which is a neat thing for a program that started the year that I showed up.
Absolutely,
at Army.
So Ryan adds, Army was perfect on clears last week, and I would imagine that Rutgers using a 10-man ride early and often, and plus the cold today, contributed to the lower percentage. Yeah, I think that's fair. Plus, they got the goalie goal today, which sort of nullifies a couple of failed clears late in the game when you're
at least a couple. Yeah, the other thing is there was, with the 10-man ride, there was sort of there were some times when the goalie still had 12 seconds to get the ball across, and rather than checking it down and trying to make something happen with a cut around the midfield line, he was throwing some. He was launching it down to.
Well, he hit the goal, and then he took another shot that was at least 15 yards off.
I don't think that was a shot. I think that was a pass to a player that was cutting across the field.
But
I know which one you're talking about. But there were a couple of passes like that last year we would have seen out of the goalie during a 9-man ride, and it's sort of only happening against the 10-man ride this year. So
no more of those, fewer of those for sure.
Yeah.
All right. You want to do fact or fiction for the Yale game? Do we feel like we know enough about this Yale game to do fact or fiction?
I know enough about Army to do a fact or fiction. Oh, gosh. I guess I'll go, what's his face? Fountain gets hat trick number 3.
All right. Let me write this down. You know what? I will go No, you know what? I'm going to go fiction on that. Come on. This kid is a plebe. If you're Yale, and you're scheming on who you want to take away, taking away a freshman, a true freshman, is a nutty thing to do. Like that's a nutty thing to do when Jackson Eicher is right there. But still, this kid has got, he's scored at least 7 points in his first 2 games. If you're not paying attention to where he is, that's a mistake. Oh, by the way, Evan Plunkett didn't do a lot today, at least on that's a mean thing to say. That's not what I want to say. On the score sheet, in terms of like assists and goals and stuff, I don't think he scored today. I don't think he had any points. He maybe had an assist. That doesn't mean he wasn't playing. So if you say, all right, we're going to take away this freshman, then all of a sudden you open up Jackson Eicher and Evan Plunkett, and that would be like a stupid thing to do. So
we'll see. Yale's going to, I'm sure, look at the score sheets and at least put some attention on them. But
so you say in fact?
I'll say fact. I don't think if Yale is if regardless of whether or not we get snow, it should be cold as all hell in New Haven on Wednesday.
Yes.
And I think that leads to a lot of failed clears and extra Army possessions. Also, maybe Ryan McDonald can help us with this. Is it a new rule this year that if you have a face-off infraction that you have to sit the next face-off?
Yes, it was. They called that out in commentary.
Okay, because it's always been 3 and then you have a 30-second penalty.
Yeah, no, that was a new rule, and Coletti had to sit a couple out, and he false started a lot today. So
I don't know. I mean, he just wasn't on his. Something was off today with Coletti.
I was wondering if he was like nursing a little injury.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be my fact or fiction. I say Coletti bounces back next week with 65% or better face-off percentage.
60 what percent?
65%
or
better.
No way. I mean, I guess I don't know how good Yale's is, but 65 is. I mean,
we've seen him do that before. We've seen him do that before against good guys.
I don't know.
And he knows he booted it today. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to. I mean, how many?
Ryan says it may have been a weird set call by the official too. I wondered that. Neither of them looked comfortable with it. Yeah, I kind of thought it. I kind of thought that as well. But you don't get the same level of camera work on ESPN Plus that you get on CBS Sports for the home games, right? And it's a little bit better at Army than an intern holding his iPhone, but it's not a lot better than that. So, they could stand to put a couple more cameras in there, or at least one with a little bit bigger lens or something.
Yale went like 55% today against Villanova. I think Coletti, if he bounces back and it goes well, I think Coletti could win 55 to 60% next week. I mean, I'm hoping for more, but I think that's realistic.
I think he bounces back with a dominant performance. Well, we shall see.
Yeah.
All right, we'll close this out. Little commercial. As for Football is growing, especially our written content. We've done As for Lax now twice in written form, and I don't know who is reading it, because if I don't sort of send it out there, I don't know if it's out. Various social media platforms are now actively demoting our links, so much so that I personally don't even put them out there anymore. I feel like social media is a shakedown. They want our content on their sites for their advertisers, and we obviously need it on our site for our advertisers. My feelings are not hurt by that, but I'm not doing it. we ain't doing that. So bottom line, so we still have a mailing list. And if you want to follow us, I suggest that you bookmark As for Football and check it once a week and subscribe to our mailing list. Like, that's the best thing you can do. And if you enjoy it and you want more, consider joining us on Patreon, or sharing this with your friends who enjoy Army sports. Like, that is the best way that you can help us. And
it's even good for the off season too, right? Because in the regular season, we got 5 articles coming out every week at least.
Yeah.
Plus 2 shows. So it's a one-stop shop for all your links. In the off season, we like to think we put out an article a week, but that's not always the case. And if you're not constantly checking As for Football and you want that alert when we do put something out, that's a great spot for you.
Absolutely. You got a favorite thing?
I think we pretty much talked about it all. Yeah.
So let me just say, it has been, after a couple of seasons of pretty warm and wet New England winters, we have had a primo skiing winter for once here in Vermont. We skied 6 to 8 inches of powder last weekend, and then I took my wife up to Mount Snow and Okemo for Valentine's Day this Thursday and Friday. We're out there in fresh, loose snow, and it's just been awesome. So I hope you guys and girls, if you're listening to this, I hope you are enjoying the season and skiing some, especially if you live in the Northeast or, someplace where it's cold. You got to embrace the winter. You're going to go crazy. Lacrosse is kind of the opposite of football in the sense that it starts cold and ends in the warmth. Whereas football, it's like, oh, football weather is cold. So, yeah, it's nutty. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. 106 people watching the show right now. Can you believe it?
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So go Army, beat Yale.
See you guys.
How do I stop this?
Thanks for joining us on the As for Football College Football Roundtable. Special thanks to our sponsor, Jocelyn Bradley Real Estate. If you're buying or selling, reach out to Jocelyn for expert service. If you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/asforfootball. Your support will help keep the lights on and bring in more great content. Plus, you'll get access to exclusive perks and behind-the-scenes extras. Thanks for being a part of the As for Football community. Go Army, beat Navy, and we'll catch you guys next week.